When you're a 40-year-old auto mechanic, loneliness starts to feel as normal as the smell of grease on your hands. I live alone, work alone, and most nights I eat alone, usually at the diner across from my garage. Everything's steady, quiet, simple, and kind of empty, especially on Sunday nights, driving home from a weekend at my folks' place in Ohio. Highway 81 was almost deserted. Just my pickup and the glow of semis way up ahead. Old country music crackled from the radio. The sky was darkening, and my head was already in Monday. Opening the shop at 7:30, firing up the coffee pot, rinsing the road dust off my hands, and diving back into other people's car problems. But that night, about 15 miles from home, I spotted a car on the shoulder. White sedan, looked like a Hyundai Elantra. The hood was up, smoke billowing out like the thing had caught fire from the inside. I didn't even hesitate. It wasn't some heroic instinct, just habit. When you've spent your life fixing things, you don't drive past something that's screaming for help. I flipped on my flashers and pulled up behind it. That's when I saw her. She was standing a few yards from the car. Young, maybe mid-20s. Slim, messy hair pulled into a rushed ponytail, wearing jeans and a sweatshirt that said Nashville Music Festival. Her phone was in her hand, but from the look on her face, it wasn't helping. Maybe no signal. Or maybe she didn't know who to call. I got out of my truck and said calmly, "Hey, everything okay? I'm a mechanic. Just thought I'd stop, see if you need help." She nodded quickly, almost sharply, like she wanted to believe me but couldn't quite relax. The car, it died. I was driving from Waterford. After I filled up, like 10 minutes later, it started jerking, then smoke, and then it just stopped. I think I poured the wrong stuff in. I thought it was the windshield fluid tank, but her voice trailed off. Her cheeks turned red with embarrassment. Eyes glossy. I stepped over and looked under the hood. The smell hit me right away. Burnt oil and hot metal. I knew it before I even saw it. Washer fluid tank. Full. Oil fill cap. Empty, except for a murky blue liquid swirling inside. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a death sentence. I exhaled. "You poured washer fluid into the engine?" She didn't answer, just nodded. Then blurted out, voice cracking, "I thought the symbol looked like a watering can." "It's okay," I said gently. "You're not the first, and you definitely won't be the last. No shame in it. The engine's probably seized up, but I'll need to check to be sure. Not much I can do here on the side of the road, though." She stood there with her shoulders dropped, arms hanging like she'd given up. It wasn't just about the car. She looked like someone who felt stupid and hated that feeling more than the smoke or the cost of repairs. Something about it hit me. I didn't feel like a mechanic just then. I felt like a person standing in front of another person who needed help. And I wanted to help, not out of duty, but something deeper. "I've got a tow chain in the back of my truck," I said. "I can pull your car back to my garage. I'll take a look at it in the morning, see what we're dealing with. Don't worry about paying for the tow, it's on my way. No sense in leaving you stranded out here tonight." She looked at me like I'd just offered her a lie she wished was true. Or maybe it was real, and she didn't know how to accept it. "You really can do that?" she asked softly. "I can, and I will." 15 minutes later, we were heading down the highway together. I was behind the wheel, she was in the passenger seat. Her Hyundai was hitched up tight behind us. She still looked tense, but not like before. Just quiet, watching the road. Then she turned to me. "Thanks. I'm Claire." "Matt," I said. "Nice to meet you. Even if the circumstances could be better." She smirked, and there was something in that smile, something warm. Like she'd just remembered life could still be decent. "Do you always help strangers like this?" I shrugged. "You'd be surprised how many people helped me when I was younger and dumber. What goes around comes around. Sometimes it pays to just be a decent human being." She nodded. "It's just rare these days." By the time we got to the garage, it was after 9 p.m. I parked her car under the awning. She asked if she should call a cab, but I offered to drive her home. Her apartment was just a couple blocks from mine. When she stepped out, she turned back. "Thank you, Matt. I'll give you a call tomorrow. Let you know what I find." She disappeared into her building. I stayed sitting in my truck, watching the door close behind her. Funny how things happen. You're just driving home, tired and half ready to call it a day. And suddenly, you meet someone who switches the lights back on in a room that's been dark for years. Or maybe it's just a coincidence. Though in my life, those don't come around too often. I got to the shop a little earlier than usual that morning. Monday. The kind of day when engines stall, Customers are late, coffee drips too slow, and your hands are covered in grease by 8 a.m. But that day felt different. I walked in, took off my jacket, switched on the old radio, brewed a strong cup of coffee, and walked over to her car. The white Hyundai sat right in the middle of the bay like a lost puppy among the heavy-duty pickups and beat-up SUVs I usually worked on. It looked out of place, just like she did yesterday, standing in smoke and panic on the side of the road. I popped the hood and listened. Nothing. Not the kind of silence you hope for, but the kind that confirms everything. Seized crankshaft. Warped head. Coolant streaks. Burned oil smell. The diagnosis was getting clearer by the minute. It was serious. Full teardown needed. Not fast. Not cheap. Around 10, I heard the front door open. Light footsteps. Cautious. "Good morning," a voice said behind me. I turned around. She stood in the doorway, same jacket, same sweatshirt, her hair down. But her eyes weren't as frightened today. More focused. Maybe she slept. Or maybe she just decided to stop being afraid. "Morning, Claire," I said. "You're right on time. I just started tearing into it." She walked over, looked at the hood, then at my hands, elbow deep in oil. A small, sheepish smile crossed her face. "You really do all this by yourself?" "I used to have a helper. Not anymore. Someone's got to keep the town rolling." "That's impressive." I chuckled. Oil and impressiveness don't usually go together. We got down to business. I explained the situation. Full removal of the engine, breakdown, cleaning the system, parts replacement. Might even be cheaper to swap in a used block. The decision was hers. "I get it," she nodded. "How much are we talking?" I did the math. It wasn't cheap. I cut the labor markup a bit, just enough to take the edge off. I didn't want her walking out feeling like she'd been taken advantage of. "Roughly this," I said, handing her the paper. She went pale but didn't say anything. Just nodded, eyes lowered. "I'll think about it. But, yeah, I think I have to. It's all I've got right now. No rush. The car's not going anywhere. Let me know when you're sure." She nodded again, stepped closer, and peered into the engine compartment. "Can I look at how it all works?" I raised an eyebrow. Most folks don't care. "Well, I want to understand what I broke." "Well, simply put," I said, "you poured blue liquid into the car's heart. It kept trying to beat, until it locked up. From pain." She stared into the engine, quiet. Then looked at me. Kind of like people, huh? I didn't answer. Just wiped my hands and nodded toward the stool against the wall. "Coffee, if I'm not in the way." She stayed for half an hour. Then another 40 minutes. I walked her through the basics, what a crankshaft does, how cooling systems work, why oil changes matter every 5,000 miles. She listened like it was a college course she couldn't afford to fail. When she left, she said, "Can I come by tomorrow? Just to check on things." "Of course. I'm here every day. Thanks, Matt. For your patience. For everything." I watched her leave. And for the first time in a long time, I realized I was smiling for no particular reason. Not because of a joke, but because someone real had been standing here. The next day she came back. With a cup of coffee for me. "You don't take sugar, right?" she asked, like she already knew. Nailed it. I was surprised. No customer had ever brought me coffee before. Not like that. By day 3, she was already at the workbench, trying to loosen a bolt on the removed engine block. "Tight as hell," she grinned. "Or maybe my arms are just noodles. Or maybe that's the wrong wrench," I said, handing her the right one. "Try the ratchet." I always thought guys in garages just yelled and turned things until stuff worked. But this is a whole different world. "Well, we do a little yelling too," I laughed. She laughed back, clear, real, bright. The kind of laugh you don't hear in places that echo too much. And right then, I knew I didn't want this week to end. Not because of the job, but because something had shifted since she started showing up. The stale silence between tools and motors had faded. In its place, warmth, conversation, presence. I knew I shouldn't get too comfortable. She was young, different life, friends, maybe a past, plans. And I was just the guy with wrenches who happened to stop when her world started smoking. But damn, every time she smiled, it felt a little less impossible that this might mean something. The next day, Claire dropped by around noon. I was waist-deep under the hood of her Hyundai, wrestling with a stubborn engine mount that hadn't budged since the dawn of time, or at least since the car rolled off the factory line. "Think a hammer would help?" I heard behind me. I popped up, wiping my hands on a rag. Claire was standing in the doorway, holding 2 cans of Dr. Pepper and a small paper bag from the bakery down the block. Bread and soda. Perfect pairing for motor oil, she smiled. You're starting to look like an official auto shop in turn, I chuckled. I'm on a break between shifts. Thought I'd drop by. Hope that's okay. More than okay. Come on in. I was just dreaming about eating something that isn't cursing. We sat on the wooden bench by the parts shelves. I switched on the little radio. It crackled with old Fleetwood Mac. Through the open garage doors came the smell of warm asphalt, and up in the sky, between power lines, a kid was flying a kite. Like the 90s all over again. Damn, it was beautiful. Claire unwrapped a bun and asked, "So, what's the story with this place? You been here from the start?" "Since '08, I nodded. Bought some tools off the father of a buddy of mine who was retiring. Rented this garage for next to nothing. Thought I'd work a couple years, save up, start something bigger. But I got hooked. I like fixing things you can actually fix. People, not so much. But cars? Yeah. All this time alone? Had a partner for a while. He moved out, his wife insisted. Now it's just me. Manager, cashier, guy who knows where the second screwdriver is." She laughed. "I've got the opposite. I work in a coffee shop, 6 of us. And every day is chaos. Here, there's order. Even with oil on the floor." I could tell she was starting to feel more at home. No longer just watching from a distance, she leaned in, asked real questions. "What's this hose?" "Air intake." "Bingo. Brings air to the throttle body. Cleaner it is, the better the engine breathes. Like lungs. If they're clogged, the car can't breathe." "Exactly. So you were a doctor in a past life? And maybe a barista in the next one. You've already taught me half your latte menu." We both laughed. Easy, unforced. Not the kind you hear in movies with perfect pauses. Real laughter. With crumbs, coughs from soda bubbles, and warmth. She stayed into the evening. I showed her how to remove an oil filter, how a timing system works, and how to diagnose a lean mix just by sound. She was genuinely interested. Not like someone playing with tools to look cool, but like someone who truly wanted to understand. When it started getting dark, I pulled out an old portable lamp from the cabinet and switched on the soft yellow light over the workbench. "You know," she said, perching on the edge of the table, "I used to think garages were loud, greasy, messy places. But this feels calm. Even cozy." I shrugged. Maybe because no one comes here to yell. Just to ask. Except angry customers. Not many of those. And to be honest, their car usually isn't the real issue. Someone pulls in with an overheated engine, but really, it's their patience that burned out. "Matt," she laughed, "you just gave me a tattoo quote for my shoulder blade. Write that down. Launch your own blog, the mechanic says." She laughed again, and this time, she held my gaze a little longer. A few days later, something shifted. Not all at once. Not like a thunderstorm, but like the air changed. Claire started coming by more often. Sometimes with coffee. Sometimes with sandwiches. Sometimes just to sit in the quiet. There was nothing romantic yet, no declarations or awkward moments. Just 2 people, tired of being alone, not breaking the silence that was finally comfortable. One day, she brought an old CD player. "You said this place needed music. Found this in my friend's attic." Otis Redding came out of the dusty speakers. His voice warm like the air after rain. "Do you like it?" she asked. "Very much. My dad used to play it while fixing stuff in the garage. Never got much done, but the music was always great." I suddenly wanted to reach for her hand. Not because of some big moment, but because, around her, the awkwardness just wasn't there. There was understanding. Steady interest. A quiet kind of closeness. But I didn't reach. Because I still wasn't sure if we had the right to hope. Then came Friday. The engine was almost rebuilt. Just needed tuning and diagnostics. Claire stood nearby, watching as I tightened the last bolts. "He's coming to get the car tomorrow," she said. "My ex." I told him it's basically done. It took me a second to process. She told me once that the car was his. He'd loaned it to her for a few days. And now? I froze for a moment. "You okay?" "Yeah, I'm okay. I don't know." He gets mean. Especially when it's about something that's his. "It'll be fine." "And the car?" "It's practically brand new now." She smiled. Soft. A little sad. "Thanks. I'll come by with him tomorrow. Just wanted to let you know." I nodded. And deep in my chest, I could already feel the cold knot. Something telling me tomorrow would change everything. The morning started heavy. Not cloudy, just like the air had thickened. Like the kind of pressure that rolls in before a storm or before something important you can't stop. I got to the shop earlier than usual, closed the door behind me, set the coffee to brew, and went over the checklist again. Engine installed, diagnostics done, everything running smooth. The car looked brand new. Ideally, Claire's ex would show up, pick up the keys, say thanks, and leave. But I didn't live in an ideal world. And I had a strong sense this guy wasn't the thanks type. They pulled up around noon. Big dark gray Ram rumbled in, spitting exhaust onto the street. He stepped out first, tall, broad, wearing a tight black tee and a thick chain around his neck. The kind of guy who walked like the world owed him space. Claire got out from the passenger's side. She moved a few steps behind him, like she already knew how this was going to go and had just accepted it. "You mad?" He barked, not offering a handshake. "Yeah. The car's ready," I replied evenly. He didn't respond. Walked straight to the Hyundai, circled it, popped the hood, gave a quick glance, then slammed it. He ran a finger along the rear door seam. "What's this?" he snapped, pointing at a faint scratch. "Wasn't there before. We towed the car from the highway. Probably the chain nicked it," I said. "I can buff it out, no charge." He smirked, but there was nothing funny in it. "Of course you can. You're so generous with other people's stuff. Especially other people's girls." Claire stood a few feet behind, silent, eyes fixed on the ground. No reaction, just her shoulders drawn in tight. I took a step forward, calm, but fists tightening. "Her name is Claire, and she's an adult, not someone's property. I've been respectful. I'd expect the same." "Oh, come on, mechanic. You think she's yours now? While I was gone, you fed her windshield fluid and whispered sweet nothings between spark plugs. I just helped her. Because it was the right thing to do." "Yeah. And then coffee, bolts, and garage romance, huh?" I didn't answer. Just met his eyes. Steady. Not hostile. Not backing down. He held the stare, but he was the one who flinched first. "Get in," he barked at Claire. She walked to the car, opened the door. But before getting in, she turned and looked at me. No words. Just a long, steady look. Her eyes said everything she couldn't voice. I gave her the slightest nod. They drove off. The shop went quiet again. I sat down on the stool by the workbench, right where we'd eaten pizza a day ago. And for the first time in a long while, I didn't want to hear the radio, the music, or even an engine humming. Everything was technically fine, except one thing. The silence didn't mean peace anymore. I knew I shouldn't have let myself hope. I was just a mechanic. She was someone from a different pace of life. At first, it felt like a coincidence. Then it became a story. And now it felt almost like a loss. That evening passed in silence. I closed early and walked home. Past pharmacies, gas stations, shuttered storefronts. Everything looked normal. But inside, it all felt tight. Thoughts unsaid ached more than any bruise. I didn't turn on the lights at home. Just sat by the window, listening to the wind slap an old shop sign across the street. Put my feet up on the sill, poured myself a bit of whiskey. Took one sip. Regretted it instantly. Wrong taste. Wrong mood. I went to bed around midnight, but sleep wouldn't come. I kept thinking about her hands gripping a wrench, her voice explaining why coffee needed foam, but not too much, her eyes when she just listened to me ramble about carburetors. Looks like that don't fade. Next morning, I arrived at the shop a little later than usual. It was Sunday, usually a slow day. Normally, I'd use it to order parts, mop the floor, and check backlogs. But today, I just sat at the desk with a mug of coffee, trying not to think. About 20 minutes after opening, there was a knock at the door. I looked up and froze. Claire. Alone. Standing at the entrance. No bags. No drama. Just jeans, a t-shirt, a light jacket. Hair pulled back in a ponytail. "Hey," she said. I stood up. "Hey. I know I didn't call," she said. "But I figured if I didn't come today, I'd never come." I didn't say a word. "He left," she added. "Didn't want to." He yelled. "But he left." And I stayed. "Why?" She gave a soft, tired smile. "Because for the first time in a long time, someone stood next to me without trying to control me. Just stood there. And didn't push." I looked at her, barely breathing. "I don't need a hero," she said. "I just need a person. And you've been exactly that. I just wanted you to know." I stepped closer. "I'm glad you came." "Me too." And the silence between us suddenly wasn't heavy anymore. It was warm. It was real. From the morning Claire stepped back into my shop, things started to shift. Not fast. Not like in movies where one kiss sets everything straight. But slowly. The way real life comes at you. Through sunlight, warm coffee, and sentences like, "Are you sure you know where you put those spark plugs? I swear they've been missing for 2 days." She started showing up almost every day. Sometimes just for coffee. Sometimes to help sweep the floor. Sometimes just to sit on the stool by the workbench while I replaced brake pads or ran new fuel lines. She never asked for anything. She was just there. We never talked about what this was. We didn't label it. Nobody said boyfriend or girlfriend. And honestly, that made it better. Because for the first time in a long time, I didn't feel like I had to act like anything other than myself. And she was just her. And that was enough. One evening, close to closing time, I noticed Claire standing by the open garage door, just staring at the street. Like she was catching a moment before it floated away. I walked over. "You okay?" She nodded. It suddenly feels peaceful. Like I don't have to explain anything. It all just breathes. "Doesn't happen often," I said. "Better remember it." "I will." We stood in silence until the town started lighting up the street lamps. It was beautiful. Not dramatic. Just quiet. Like those songs you only notice when they play behind gas station scenes, but somehow stick with you more than the big speeches. She stayed for dinner. Not like a guest, but like part of my regular day. We warmed up leftovers from the fridge, some pasta, and a few sautéed vegetables. She chopped up basil. I poured 2 glasses of cheap wine someone had left at my place after Labor Day. "Well," she said, raising her glass. "So this is life." "I think so," I smiled. "Only without the end credits." Thank God for that. That night, she stayed over. 2 weeks passed. One day, while I was swapping shocks on an old Chevy, she walked over and sat beside me. "I applied for a new job." "Seriously?" "Yeah. I'm tired of standing behind an espresso machine pretending I don't care. Found an opening for a shop assistant at an auto repair place a couple neighborhoods over. Figured I'm getting pretty decent with cars." "You really want to go into that?" "Why not? I always thought this was a guy's thing. But you know what? Turns out there's no such thing. There's only what's real. And this, fixing things, being around engines and people who don't lie, it feels real." I nodded. My throat tightened a bit. "That's great. I'm just 2 blocks away. You can always stop by for backup. As long as you never make me one of your foamy mechanic lattes again," she grinned. I laughed. "Hey, we've got our own standards." A month later, she was working at her new job. We saw each other a little less, but still almost every day. Breakfast together. Sometimes dinner. She brought me pastries on Fridays. I drove to pick her up when her umbrella gave up in the rain. We didn't live together, but we lived close. For the first time. Not like people scared to get hurt again, but like 2 souls who finally chose to trust. She never mentioned her ex. I never asked. It was like an old crack in the wall, still there, but no longer aching. One evening, near the start of fall, she asked, "Did you ever think something real could come out of a roadside breakdown?" I shrugged. If you'd told me a year ago that I'd open the hood of a stranger's car and pull out not just the engine, but a new kind of life, I would have laughed. And now, I looked at her. And now I think, if I hadn't stopped that night, a big part of me would have stayed broken. She smiled and reached for my hand. "Thanks for stopping." I took her hand. Firm. Quiet. Like holding on to something you never want to lose. "And thank you," I said, "for coming back." We stood outside the shop. The sun was setting. The air smelled like gasoline and the start of autumn. And in that moment, I understood something. Sometimes you don't need a miracle. You don't need to start over. Sometimes all you need is for someone to look at your old, scarred story and say, "I believe in it. I believe in you."